most welcome to Historiesbanorna History Reconnaissance. This is Axis attack craft in World War II, human torpedoes, midget submarines, torpedo and explosive boats. This is the story of how Germany and Italy tried to overcome the Allied might with small craft and limited resources, and with considerable success. And please, like, share and subscribe. It means a lot to us. The Italian version of the human torpedo, the SLC, Siluro a lenta corsa, meaning slow torpedo, was not a suicide craft. It was a modification of a standard torpedo that carried 2 men and 2 heavy charges to the target. The 2 125 kilo warheads were clamped onto the torpedo and then detached at the target. One could sink a merchant ship. Together they could cripple a battleship. The craft was designed to give the operators a smooth ride. Simple controls for hydroplane and rudder. A switch for 4 speeds forward and 4 reverse. Electric pumps to fill or empty the ballast tanks. The length of the SLC was 22 feet and the weight 1.5 tons. The torpedo man carried 2 oxygen bottles. That was enough for 5 to 6 hours use underwater. The captain of the craft sat in the forward position, handling the controls and navigation. The range of the SLC was 15 miles at a speed of 2 knots. In December 1941, 4 of these Italian crafts scored a major triumph. They got into Alexandria harbor undetected. They approached their targets with only their eyes above water. Then they submerged and ran slowly towards their targets. Positioned the craft under the bilge keel. The captain then held the craft while the number 2 man ran a line from one bilge keel to the other. Detached the warheads and placed them directly under the keel. The time clock was started and they drove away. The British battleships Valiant and Queen Elizabeth were seriously damaged by the exploding warheads but stayed afloat. This was a heavy blow to the Royal Navy. Valiant was out of action for 7 months, Queen Elizabeth for 18. The Italian MTSM was a high-speed motor torpedo boat with a 2-man crew. It had retractable propellers that could let the boat slide over harbor defense nets. 2 Alfa Romeo engines on either side of the single 450 mm torpedo tube gave her a top speed of 32 knots. The torpedo was fired by aiming the boat at the target. Then, after firing, sharply turning the boat away from the torpedo. The main combat use of these MTSMs was to attack the Allied supply line between El Alamein and Alexandria. They were moved along the Egyptian coast by trailers and launched for these attacks. The first successful German craft was the Marder, a 1-man torpedo with a real torpedo slung below the mother craft that carried it within close firing range of the target. The craft was transported on a steel trailer to the launching point. They were used both in Italy and after D-Day on the French coast, scoring some small victories. On the other hand, the loss rate was terrible. On August 16, 1944, 42 Marders were sent out and 26 were lost. Only a few Allied ships were damaged or sunk. In September, 17 of 30 Marders committed in a single attack in Italy were lost, and no Allied losses recorded. The Beaver was the second German pocket submarine in use. It had a gas engine for surface cruising and battery charging. Still, its normal range was just 75 miles. It could carry 2 torpedoes outside the hull. Beaver was 30 feet long and weighed 6 tons. It was small enough to be launched from makeshift strategic points. She was tricky to handle, hard to navigate, and with restricted visibility for the operator. Beaver was used against shipping to the port of Antwerp, with small success, and suffered heavy losses. The Seehund was the last, largest and best of the German pocket submarines. The first operation took place in December 1944, when 18 craft set out from Midget in the Netherlands. However, this was a disaster. The submarines encountered a storm and only 2 returned. The Seehund was mass-produced and a series of 1,000 units was planned. 138 was eventually added to the Kriegsmarine until April 1945. She was a slimmed down version of a full-size sub and carried 2 torpedoes on the outside of the hull. The captain called the orders to the engineer who handled all the controls. 70% of the Seehunds made attacks on Allied shipping, though many missed their targets due to inexperience. Still, 100,000 gross tons Allied shipping was sunk by them. For the Allied escorts, they were almost impossible to ping with ASDIC and almost impossible to detect by hydrophone due to her very quiet, slow-speed running. The Linse explosive boat was another German attempt to stem the Allied tide at the end of the war. Building of the Linse started in May 1944. Altogether, 1,200 were built. They were trailer-drawn and launched directly. They had a Ford V8 engine and a non-retractable prop. On the run towards the enemy, the attack position was the command boat holding the center position. The 2 other Linsen closed in on either side, so that target and attack details could be shotted across. The leader was helmsman of the command boat. His 2 crew were responsible for controlling the 2 Linsen after their pilots had jumped out. During the attack, each used an ultra-shortwave transmitter in a black box balanced on their knees. The command boat crewmen then controlled the 2 pilotless Linse, using a green lamp and a red lamp that could only be seen from the stern, aligning the 2 lights and the target. On impact with the target, the Linse's bow was destroyed, the heavier stern sinking and exploding a 480 kilo charge with a preset delay timer close to a target ship's bottom. Directly after the attack, the command boat would search for the 2 Linse pilots in the water. As soon as they were aboard, the command boat would turn away at full speed, laying a broad smoke screen from a stern installation. At least, that was the theory. The Italians also used explosive boats. They had an Alfa Romeo engine that gave them a speed of up to 30 knots, and a combined propeller rudder that could be swiveled to pass a standard torpedo net with ease, usually at night and at low speed. Early in the war, they were used in mass attacks. They were very vulnerable to gunfire and not very effective. Nevertheless, a cheap way to deliver a massive charge to the target. One defense against these types of crafts were torpedo nets. The best could stop torpedoes, human torpedoes, midget subs, and with specially rigged surface elements, even a motorboat. Only two-man torpedoes and swimmers could get past using net cutters. Then it was up to the harbor defenses, using listening devices like hydrophones and sonobuoys, radar and detection loops, or in daytime with visual observation.
That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.